open up the panel, I want to know you just a little bit better. I find you to be an intriguing woman. I really do.
Okay, I'll take that.
I think that's enough time to say, yeah, this is the one I want.
With wedding rings in hand and their marriage application filled out, they anxiously waited for the judge's ruling on whether gay marriage will once again be allowed in California. 4 hours later, the couple and dozens of others finally got the news they were waiting for.
Yay! While gay marriages resume in California this week, the legal battle continues in the courts. The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals and ultimately the U.S. Supreme Court could well rule that opponents of same-sex marriage have no standing to appeal U.S. District Chief Judge Vaughn R. Walker's decision striking down Proposition 8. But in terms of the politics of gay marriage, there has been a dramatic shift. It no longer seems to be a game changer in electoral politics. That's now left to the black, brown, Muslim issues. Well, we're joined by Richard Kim, senior editor of The Nation magazine. Richard, hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, the battle is going to take place in the courts. Break it down for us. What does this mean?
Well, so those couples cheering shouldn't cheer just yet.
Love isn't in the air.
I know. So.
There is a consistent narrative about all the different ways in which you make black men deviant. And how many different ways, how many different ideologies, how many different labels can you create to make sure that you frame the conversation in that way. My other point, though, is that when you bring it all the way up to the contemporary time, is that ultimately what you're still dealing with, thinking about, talking about, is the legacy of untreated trauma. And what it creates in us, in how we feel about ourselves, and then how we deal with one another. So we talk about being a people of movements, and we talk about the importance of institutions. And I say that the first and most significant institution is the institution of self. And so beyond the, it is not to negate the analysis and the intellect and placing everything in its context, but the legacy of that untreated trauma, I call it emotional justice. And that is that you have to deal with what all of those things have made you feel about yourself and how you shape yourself.
And there was a time when the ANC chose to engage in armed struggle, when they sent fighters to the Ghana of Kwame Nkrumah, when your father was in that government, to train there.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
The Mkonte Sizwe, Spirit of the Nation, is always framed as armed struggle. It is the resistance of a people to a government who are waging war against that people. And languaging it that way really matters. Because what happens when we think about Nelson Mandela, I call it the 3 Ls, lost, legacy, and leadership. And we start to language him in a way that separates the man and the movement in ways that are dangerous, because it implies that it is this magical space that he inhabits as an individual, as opposed to the institutional structures that framed him and really shaped who he became. I think the magic of the voice, it's not just that it is interdependent, but that it's intimate. TV absolutely demands distance, and there's an elevation of the people who are around the table and who are looking into the camera. There's a specific distance that's created that is very different than the radio. And I think the way that the voice conveys emotion and information speaks into the soul of somebody differently than the TV does. And that you can do radio, you can listen to radio and be doing 20 different other things and feel engaged and involved and part of the conversation. And I think for radio, the audience is participating in the medium, whereas with television, you're literally watching somebody else do the work.
The war of words escalates over Governor Chris Christie's George Washington Bridge scandal. Let's bring in our brain trust. Political commentator Esther Armah, Beth Fooey, the new senior editor at MSNBC.com, welcome aboard, and Peter Suderman, senior editor at Reason magazine. The New Jersey Assemblyman John Wisniewski, who is heading the GW Bridge investigation, said regardless of the timing, Mayor Zimmer's allegations will be investigated. So let's listen to what he had to say.
I'm not sure exactly what caused Mayor Zimmer to wait till now, but clearly the allegation that she was asked to support a redevelopment project where there was funding from the Port Authority, which we're investigating, in turn for her getting money for her municipality, raises serious allegations. We don't know where it goes. We don't know if there's more to it, but I think it's something the committee has to consider as part of the overall investigation.
So how do you think these allegations could affect the political future of Governor Christie?
I think this will come down to an issue of framing and narrative, because there are multiple constituencies that Chris Christie appeals to. On the one hand, there's the way in which the media will articulate the varying arguments around whether or not this represents the moment that Christie's presidential aspirations for 2016 died. That's one potential. But the other narrative is there's a difference between who votes in a primary, who votes in presidential elections, how the party deals with it, and how the media deals with it. And for Chris Christie, this could be one of those moments where he talks about weathering the storm beside his people, willing to ride it out. So depending on how this is framed, because we keep hearing, we don't know how this is going to play out yet. Why did she come so long? There's a framing happening here, and in politics, it is not the truth that really matters. It's the perception of that truth, who believes what truth, and how you can frame it to serve your ultimate agenda, intention, and winning election potential.